Okay. Alright, so this is just these are the demos that I did in class. So I'll show you guys again. I'll try to recreate those, but of course they won't be perfect. But I'll talk about those. Everybody's hair is different, so got to think about, the length of the hair, the value of the hair, all that kind of stuff. I do feel the easiest place to start is in the darkest areas, because I can't really mess those up, right? If I do mess up, I just make it darker and I cover up those mistakes. So I do like to start in the darkest areas first. And because of that, I always start off with a freshly inked ink pad. So I go and I refill it with some ink, because if I'm working in those darkest areas and want to get to that dark value faster, more ink will get me there. So I'll do that. And I'm going to try, this is going to be kind of hard, but all right, so because I'm demoing here at the table, I can't exactly pull this out all the way, but I'm going to try. All right, so just set that up a little bit. All right, so make sure that your ink stamp pad, guys, always on your sketchbook, not on your project and not on the table, because you don't want to get ink somewhere where you don't want it, okay? I've got a bunch of different map board here, and I'm going to show you all the different ways to use that. And I have the tag board too. So I'll be using those things. So the first thing I like to do, I'll do short hair first. So when you're doing short hair, you're going to be you're not going to be dragging probably ink as much, and you're going to be probably just doing more kind of stamping like this than, trying to get it to look long. So again, if I'm in those darker areas, I'm going to have a nicely inked pad here. I'm kind of using the side of my finger rather than the whole finger, because I want to kind of get these smaller shapes. And then all I'm going to do is kind of just build it up. And again, working with a freshly refilled ink pad works best. So I'm just kind of doing these kind of like V shapes almost, or trying. It's not necessarily translating that way, but that's the way I'm doing it. And I'm kind of dragging out. Once I kind of get rid of some of the ink on my finger, I can do even the lighter values, or I might just stamp off on a scrap piece of paper to do some of the lighter areas. But that's how you could do like some shorter hair. And again, I'm primarily just using the side of my finger. I have a lot of kids who actually, when they do have long hair, they'll like to use their pinky finger, like the side of it. So I'll go ahead and do that. So to do the long hair, I got a little bit in my palm. Again, I'm going to take advantage of the length of my pinky finger. And I'm going to kind of just build up the dark area. I'm just going to I'm kind of stamping and dragging. And so this would be great for those of you that have longer hair and have those long kind of blocked out sections where it's just really dark. So you can just kind of fill in those sections like this. And again, I think starting with your darkest areas first are better. And now, and I'm kind of even going in and just kind of stamping, but I'm using the side of my pinky finger, because I want these kind of thin strips for just to kind of phase it out, so that way it kind of blends out a little bit more. Okay, so that's how I can do some of these darker areas. I can even go back to this one here. And all you have to do to make these lighter areas is just have less ink on your finger. That's all that it is, just less ink. So tap it off on a scrap piece of paper to get that. Another way that you can do this, I've had a lot of kids really rely on these a lot. Like I rely on them a lot for when I need to plug in the line work. So in these lighter areas, this is where I would kind of go in and, again, I'm going to drag my corner of this map board in the ink stamp pad, and then I'm just going to go in and kind of draw out these hairs. It can be hard to get these really dark, but I've had some kids come up with some great ideas where they kind of squeegee the ink all into an area on the ink pad, and they'll just kind of make a puddle of ink, and then they'll just basically dip the tip of their map board in there, and they'll get some nice dark lines. But you'll notice that you only see a lot of line work in your photo where the value of the hair gets a little bit lighter. So you won't be doing a ton of line work in this. I think a lot of you guys are probably having a hard time with just the transitions, like how to go from really dark and kind of blending it out. Again, it's all about using a little less ink. So if I feel like this is too abrupt in here, now maybe, and you will have areas that are like that where there is no gradation whatsoever. It goes from really dark to really light, and you don't want that to blend. But let's say maybe this area up here needs to blend out a little bit more. What I'm going to do is I'm going to get some ink on my finger. I'm going to tap off the majority of that ink so then I don't have that much ink on my finger, and then I'm just going to lightly kind of stamp back over this until I kind of gradate that out more. And I'll do that until I get it right. Just slowly kind of build it up with just thin layers of ink so I can, and see I kind of messed it up, until I get that spot right. There. And just kind of gradate that out until it's done. If you have curly hair, you're going to probably be doing more like actually curving your finger in the direction that the curl is in. So you might be finding, you're kind of doing stuff like this. So again, I'm kind of using the side of my finger whenever I want the shape that I'm inking thinner. And when I want it to be a little bit bigger, I am using more of the, full finger print. When I've got ink on my finger, if I just freshly inked my finger and I want to kind of drag this out, I'm very lightly kind of brushing over my paper. But you'll figure out ways to make this work. But look at the shapes that everything is making. Look at the shapes that those dark values are making. Look at the shapes that the gray values are making and the light gray values are making. Go back and forth between using your fingers and your map board and your tag board. But I mean, where there's a way, where there's a will, there is a way. Something my grandma used to always say. And if you'll notice too on these map board and even the tag board too, these corners, obviously after you start using them a lot, they start to wear down. Just take a pair of scissors, cut it, and you got a new edge. So it works out well. Had some kids too with these map board pieces, they'll literally, I'll kind of show you here, they'll take their map board and they'll kind of drag the whole end across their ink pad, and then they'll kind of even drag the map board across to create some shapes and to get some of that stuff inked in. So rather than really stamping with your finger, you could even just stamp with the map board. So again, I'm just taking the map board, just kind of dragging it across the ink pad to kind of load that up. I got a lot of ink on there. I'm just kind of dragging it across. So there's some other ways to do it. There's like a million ways you can do it. Whatever you can ink with your fingers and the map board and the cardstock is fair game. So if you come up with a way that doesn't match any of these that I've done, it's still viable. As long as it works, it works. So there's some other examples. Okay? All right, so hopefully that helped you guys. Big thing is, if you're not sure what you're doing, try it in your sketchbook first.